2 race wins in 3 races has put Ferrari right in the mix for championship contention this year. That would have been an absurd claim a few weeks ago, but recent upgrades have turned things around spectacularly. We've now learned a lot about the up and down season of the SF-24 Ferrari car and how the Maranello team have got into its probable prime position. But is Ferrari the new frontrunner for the rest of the season? And how does that advance Ferrari as championship contenders for 2025? Events of the recent triple header has changed the possible outcomes of ongoing championship battles. One is where Ferrari have made a tremendous comeback in the Constructors' Championship, slashing its points deficit from 75 to just 36, moving itself ahead of Red Bull in the standings. Ferrari's upswing is not only down to its own improvements, but also to rivals struggling. Red Bull still lacks a pace edge despite making inroads with its Austin upgrade package, while McLaren's weakness in braking around low-speed corners has made Ferrari the car by choice and has put the team right in the thick of the action. The car has undergone many changes and plenty of work has been done to fix the SF-24's balance. Ferrari's recent upgrades dating back to Monza set it back on the path to the front, where the team returned to winning ways. Ferrari introduced a brand new underfloor at Monza, which appeared to work extremely well on early and present races. The aim of this floor was to fix the SF-24's porpoising problem, and Austin had confirmed that. The second key change came at Singapore in the form of a new front wing, but the improvement was hard to spot initially. Ferrari introduced this revised front wing aimed initially at increasing aerodynamic load at the front of the car, but the team made an under-the-radar change at Austin, which is what brought the real performance advantage. Ferrari made under-the-skin tweaks to this front wing apparently at Austin, which by the rules Ferrari were not obliged to declare to the FIA as the geometry of part was not altered, where Ferrari was able to engineer in better controlled flexibility. The upshot from this upgrade is that the Ferrari SF-24 is now much easier to set up for a wide range of corner speeds to have a consistent balance for both Charles and Carlos. Over the last couple of races, Ferrari were looking for a better balance, had to go into their systems to figure out what that optimal range was. Ferrari has now figured that out and they've had pretty much the fastest car for the last couple of races. These cars now definitely don't just rely on upgrades for performance. It's clear to see that the car setup is much more important. Whether you can be efficient with a setup that yields good handling balance. It's because right now times are marginal between teams, especially the top 3. It's so marginal that upgrades themselves don't act as performance benefactors, but are introduced to fine-tune the balance of the car to help drivers overcome understeer and oversteer issues going through certain corners. Looking at the team's track record of recent, the second half of 2024 has been a great run for Ferrari. First upgrades arrived at Monza, which was supposed to be performance enhancers, and they were just that. Charles won at Monza, while following up at Baku again, Charles was right up there with Piastri. Singapore, if it wasn't for the mistakes the team made during qualifying, the SF-24 had pace to win that GP as well. Austin was a dominant show by Ferrari following the front wing upgrades they introduced at Singapore, which is definitely something which needs to be talked more about, because with how regulations are moving stable into 2025, this wing was brought essentially to gather data for next year's SF-25. This will probably be the front wing we see on next year's Ferrari, which they have already started to develop back at Maranello, and bringing these extra parts now to the track to test its performance is advantageous moving forwards. Fred Vasseur definitely has improved the team dynamics in both the development and communications departments, apparent from the better communication between driver and team, and also how clear strategic choices have been made in recent races. That is really going to push the team forwards, and as we have mentioned before, the recent track record has been good for Ferrari, and victories at both Austin and Mexico have confirmed that the upgrades have worked. Bodes well for Las Vegas next, which is a track that should, on circuit nature, suit the Ferrari car well. Qatar could be a slight problem if they fail to pick up the optimal setup range around those high-speed corners. Then comes Abu Dhabi, once again a good track for Ferrari previously and based on the SF-24's current performance. This pretty much predicts Ferrari to be right in the thick of the action, which does give them a title shot as well. And with teams not bringing much more upgrades moving forwards, this should be the pecking order for the very end of the 2024 season. Talking about the team's title aspirations for the current season, Carlos Sainz added, I think the Constructors' title is our goal. Looking at the position we are in this year may be more or less difficult. It is an ambition, an optimistic target, but I think we need to have ambitious targets, and this is definitely one of them. Looking on to 2025, we will have to play the waiting game for a little while, as we are still uncertain what the Ferrari engineers have planned for the upcoming winter development period. Talking about 2025, we obviously have to talk about the driver pairing of Charles and Lewis. This is an interesting combo. Looking at it, it will be very interesting to see how both operate on and off the track. The current version of the car is working super well for both Carlos and Charles, even though they have completely different driving styles when it comes to oversteer and understeer balance. So there's no dominant way of driving the current car, as it works pretty well both ways. The porpoising which was seen mid-season seems to have been cured fully, which bodes well towards next season, something that Lewis will be very much pleased of to hear. Current trajectory under consideration, Ferrari looks to have the car that has the least number of problems right now, which is right on par with the McLaren car. Performances at Austin and Mexico has really raised Ferrari's ratings of recent, and that has solidified them as a team not to be taken lightly of for 2025 in my perspective. Hamilton, as we know, will be driving the F175 first under TPC rules, which is a car not that different to the SF-24 mechanically to accommodate the Ferrari machinery. And he and Charles both will be happy with what the Ferrari engineers have been able to turn up behind the scenes. We can still expect some little things from Ferrari leaning massively towards 2025. Tiny part things like the Cobra wings the SF-24 currently has to test out aerodynamics, to work on efficiency. They already have a probable 25 front wing spec running alongside a pretty stacked car. Next up is a long winter where they have the freedom to revise the entire car, to which already reports are suggesting that Ferrari have some major suspension revisions planned to improve the car's mechanical base even more. All things considered, Ferrari are riding on a probable high. As long as they can get the balance and setup of the car right, they have every chance of winning this year's Constructor Championship. Even if 2024 doesn't go its way, its late season resurgence is a hugely encouraging sign for Ferrari, for its chances of fighting for both titles in 2025. But what do you guys think? Are Ferrari in the hunt for this year's Constructors' Championship? And what are your thoughts about Ferrari being a top contender for both titles in 2025? Is it going to be the record-breaking 8th, or is it going to be a first world title in 25? We are very much into your thoughts and perspectives in the comment section down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe on your way down if you enjoy our content.